I am very excited to have you here with me today. I know that you're like Mrs. Podcast, like you have your own two podcasts and you've been doing it for a while. So I'm always happy when things kind of cross paths, and it's good to have you here as a guest today on Beyond the Code. So, first of all, incredibly impressive career you've had. You've been in compliance roles in some of the biggest companies, HSBC, Deloitte, Interpol, um, like really, really, really cool. I mean, and the list goes on. I'm not going to go through the whole list. Like I said, like I don't like introducing people. I much prefer when they introduce themselves because, especially since you've had such an illustrious career. So Delphine, welcome to the show. Please tell our audience if they're not from the compliance or legal industry and they've never heard of you before, please introduce yourself for our audience. Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzi Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So I am now the head of policy Europe at Solidus Labs. And at Solidus Labs, we provide market surveillance system for different type of customer, asset businesses, but also TradeFi and hedge fund, traditional banking and stuff like that. But before my life at Solidus Labs, I've been there only for 2 years, but before that, I was a chief compliance and legal officer in major crypto businesses, so exchanges, but I also stopped by a miner. I wanted to see the beginning to the end. And I've been in the crypto space for, I guess, around 9-10 years. And yeah, before entering the crypto space, I was working in traditional finance as everybody else in banking and compliance mainly. But my passion was I wanted to be a juriste international de terrain. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
It means like I wanted to go in countries and help them to set up constitutional frameworks. That was my little project when I was younger. I was really passionate about human rights, and this is why I did my internship at the Council of Europe, Interpol, Eurojust, and different international organizations. That was my passion. And then going to crypto, it kind of like goes back to my roots, because at the beginning, crypto was really to enable, people to trade with each other directly without intermediary and really, making finance more accessible to everybody. And I guess this is, I stayed in crypto, loved crypto. And also in my life in crypto, I was a board member in the BitMEX Association. We set up a protocol for travel rule compliance with OpenVASP, which is now called TRP. I have the crypto compliance and legal Telegram group where we discuss everything.
Which is, I think, the largest compliance group on any platform anywhere, and certainly the most active.
Yeah, and we like to talk about a lot of different things. So if you're interested, join me.
I don't know how you have time for any other job outside of that group. It is the most active group, and you police it like nothing I've ever seen. Like anytime any kind of new regulation comes out, boom, boom, boom. You're just like posting. Super impressive.
Thank you. I mean, it's my little baby, so I love to make sure everything is fine. And also, I built it up because when I was a chief compliance and legal officer, I was harassed by providers, and I know work for a provider, right? And in the group, I really wanted to make sure that there will not be any people trying to advertise anything and really make it a safe space for compliance and legal officer to network and share their struggles and their challenges and see they're not alone in this little compliance mess.
Yeah, no, and you do a great job at that. So you just kind of like sped through everything, and I appreciate that, but I like to go like deep on these things. So take me back again to when you were young and passionate about, changing the world and shaping policy. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Strasbourg in France, and
Okay.
and then when I was 17, I moved to Lyon. At the time there was a big move 500 kilometers away from my family, and this is where I study at Sciences Po. And Sciences Po is where French people who work in the government are trained. So that was my first, step into politics. And it's really like a school where I teach you about politics, international law, European law, and it's very centered around human rights. So that was my first step into policy. I think.
Okay. And then how did you segue from there into TradFi?
So I did when I was at Sciences Po, I also did 1 year abroad in the US, where I studied international politics. Then I did 2 master degrees in laws, multiple internship in different international organizations, but also inside a bank, and a French bank where I was working in the audit department.
Hmm.
And there, I was like, maybe that could be an option because back when I was looking for a job, I wanted to work for an EU international organization. But because I was French, and at the time, the Bulgaria and Romania were joining the EU. And if you want to work for an EU organization, they have quotas, right? So they take a certain amount of people from different countries. And at the time, there was no space for
There's no
French
quota
people.
for French.
No quota for French. And they were like, I think like the exam to get into the European Commission at the time, you had to pass it in like a football stadium. So this is to tell you the amount of people that were trying to get into that.
Wow.
So I was, okay, I need to find a plan B. What am I going to do? And this is why I looked like more at the trade by space.
Okay. And was it like you were like, oh, I'm going to just get a real job while I wait for new quotas to open up for French? Or it was like, I'm abandoning this?
No, no, no. It was kind of like, I want to make money. Let's go in the private sector. Let's give it a try. And I actually started to work for a cost optimization company, which was called
Okay.
Leighton at the time. So I was doing audit on tax law, and social securities laws. And my job at the time was actually to find loopholes in the French law, make a product with that, and then go to the client side, do the audit of what I was doing, and then find the loophole, and then go to the tax administration and say, okay, during the last past 3 years, the company I represent have overpaid because X, Y, Z. So I did that actually for 4 years and a half. It was a lot of fun because it's really, playing with the law to find a loophole and then test the product and see where it works. And you work with the public sector and the private sector, which I found it was really exciting.
Okay.
And
And you got to like exercise your mind from like a legal perspective and just
yeah,
think critically that way.
exactly. And then I moved to Japan.
How did that happen?
And
That's like a complete. How did anybody in Japan understand you with your accent also? Because as it is, the Japanese are so hard to communicate with, and you have like a very strong European accent. Like, how did you manage to communicate in
so
Japan?
So the first thing is like I was very confident. I was, I had a great job in France. I was like, I'm gonna find a job in Tokyo very easily, no problem. I thought they were speaking in English like there. It was back in 2011.
Uh huh.
And I arrived, I moved, and I was in the center of Tokyo in Omotesando. I wanted to order coffee at Starbucks and they didn't speak English. And I was like, maybe this is not going to be as easy as I thought. So I ended up getting a few interviews, and then people were like, "Oh, but you don't speak Japanese. You have no experience in Japan." And I was like, "Yeah, but I mean, you're interviewing me, so you should. Why is this for, right?" And then I decided to study Japanese for 6 months, 8 hours a day, and the only
Wow.
job I could do was to be a recruiter. So I was a recruiter for tech companies, gaming companies.
But I don't understand. How did you end up in Japan to begin with? You were just like, I want to move to Japan and I'll figure out what I'm going to do there.
Why do you think I moved to Japan? Guess. I'm
Met a
French.
Japanese dude.
I am French and passionate for men, obviously, but not a Japanese one.
Okay.
A French guy.
French guy moved to Japan. Okay.
No, he was already in Japan, and
Okay.
I met him in France, and I was like, after 6 months, I was like, I'm all in, I'm moving to Japan. And then after 3 months, obviously, he dumped me.
He dumped you and you had no job, no language, and no boyfriend. Okay.
Exactly. And then because I'm very proud, and my parents was, when I moved to Japan, they was like, you're crazy. You'd see, this is not a good idea. And because I'm very stubborn, I was like, you will see.
I'll show you guys.
Exactly, I'll show you guys. And I find an apartment, I found a job. Did I find a boyfriend? A couple of ones.
Wow.
And I ended up organizing art exhibition for French artists. So I had a job as a
Wow.
recruiter, and on top of that, I was working with a small Japanese gallery so that I could, speak Japanese, meet new people in the art world, and it was a lot of fun.
And
I
did you
really enjoyed.
actually learn Japanese over those 6
Yes,
months?
of
Wow. And
course.
do you still speak Japanese?
I mean, I haven't spoken it for a while, so I go to Japan quite often, so I can still understand. So when my friends speak, I can understand what they say, but
Wow.
I will reply in English. I think like if I really wanted to speak Japanese again, I need to stay there 3 months, and then it would come up.
Wow.
But yeah.
Okay, so you started off as a recruiter and then you moved ultimately into a TradFi job in Japan.
No. After my 3 years in Japan, 3 years and a half, doing organizing art exhibition, working as a recruiter, I was like, maybe it is time to get back to more serious things. So I left Japan and I moved to London without a job. And I was okay, let's move to
As one
London.
does.
Why not? And this is how I started working for Bank of Tokyo. So that was a link. I was thinking if I work for a Japanese bank, maybe I can keep up with my Japanese. And this is why I ended up in TradeFi. And I started in trade finance compliance. And trade finance is a very interesting world because it's a lot of things are happening, right? Because it's all about the trade of commodities, and there's a lot of interesting legal issues around, especially in the sanction world, right? It gets very interesting about what you can do, what you cannot do. You can do it depending on the nexus, US nexus, where the goods are coming from, what type of goods are transiting, looking at the ships, at the shipment, what type of ship, what type of plane. Yeah, I really loved it.
Okay, so got into trade finance on the compliance side. Take me through. What do we do after that?
After that, so Bank of Tokyo, I stayed there only a year and a half. My boss moved, so I decided to move too. And I started working at HSBC, and at this time, HSBC was actually experimenting with the blockchain to streamline their trade finance operation. And
Okay, that's pretty early days, no? Or like, what year, place me, where are we now?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty early on, and I was
Especially for a bank to have embraced blockchain so early.
as I was only a test thingy, right? Like
Yeah, but
nothing was really happening, but there was like some contracts to look at, see, oh, we could do that. And this is how I got exposed to blockchain. But the first time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2012 in Japan. I went to meet up about Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, that sounds very interesting. I want to invest. And I went to a website, and then they asked for my credit card detail. I was like, ooh, look touchy, do not touch. And then back in 2017, right, when HSBC was experimenting with the blockchain, I was like, maybe I should just read a book about it and start to educate myself about that. And I read a book that was written by Paul Vigna and Michael Casey on the future of money. And the more I was reading the book and the more I was downloading applications, this is why I bought my first Ethereum at the time. And I got very interested into it. So I was like, oh, maybe I should just go and work for
a
crypto
crypto
exchange.
company.
Yes. And I was in London, and I don't know, I saw this company based in Zug in Switzerland, some crypto exchange. And I was like,
Which
leaky. It doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
But they had operation in the Netherlands, in Russia, in Vanuatu. We applied for a license in Cyprus. At the time, they issued a security token. So there was a lot of legal challenges, but I thought they would never take me. And I don't know, I applied for the job and I got the job as a global head of compliance, beginning of 18 for a crypto exchange. And this is why I get into
Wow.
crypto. Yeah, it was really
Okay.
cool.
But did you have like some learning curve? Because ultimately you didn't know much about crypto other than this book that you had read, and now you're the global head of compliance for a crypto exchange. Did you show up on your first day of the job and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like totally like fake it till you make it. So what did you do?
I mean, like I was thinking, compliance is compliance, right? Like what I've learned in TradeFi about how to set up a compliance program, it's basically the principle remains the same. Or you set up a compliance program. The challenges are completely different, right? You are dealing with people who have no idea about compliance. So I've never worked in a regulated entity, and you arrive and you look at them and you say, "There's no sanction checks." But how do you comply with sanction program? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, okay, let's get back to the beginning. And but what I do to educate myself on crypto, when I was living in Zug, there was like events like almost every day on company pitching and like different, panels, and it was very, very happening at the time. So I was just going out to as many events as I can to really understand the business, downloading all the application. But also, something that I found really interesting is at the time I saw the CEO of our company was completely nuts, but he was a genius, we were using color coins, and color coins is the ancestor of stable
Of
coin, right?
mhm.
Like this is insane. Like when you think about it, like, and no one was believing in what we were doing. We also had like tokens that would represent a basket of cryptocurrencies that would go up or down. You could bet on if it would go up or if it would go down. And we had lots of like very interesting product, but at the time it was, nobody really trusts you seriously with all those products, but it
Yeah.
was very visionary, right? Um, so it was super
Also,
interesting.
Zug was where the Ethereum Foundation was
Yes,
evolving from at that time also, right? So
yes,
like it must
yeah.
have been they must have been at the core of a lot of those events that were happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the regulator at the time was really crypto
Forward thinking.
friendly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like you have like FINMA. FINMA is a financial service regulator in Switzerland. They were holding meetings with 100 people in a small little meeting room in Zug with all the crypto people, and they were telling us about the new framework applicable. This ship has completely sailed,
Yeah, that
but at the
like when they say the
time,
good old days, that's what they
yes,
mean.
yes, exactly. So that was like, it was really interesting time. And also from an intellectual point of view, because the main exchange was from legal point of view based in the UK. And then we had another one in the Netherlands. The staff was in Switzerland and Russia. And then we also had an entity in Vanuatu, a small little island with a securities license, an entity in the US, and we applied for OTF license in Switzerland. We actually got an MTF license in Cyprus back in 2019, right? So that was very early on. A lot of cool things happening in this company. I really enjoyed. For my first crypto ride was huge learning curve and really, really interesting.
Right. So like you were probably preaching compliance, but at the same time you were learning crypto. So like I guess
Yeah.
it was both parties were trying to figure out the other one. How did it end in the end?
It ended like really in a very interesting way, because as a compliance officer, when you come to TradeFi, you used to work with people that whatever you say they will do. And when you work in crypto, whatever you say they won't do, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you say, they always challenge you. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And when you work with regulations that are principle based, it's very challenging, right? Because they will come to you and they will say, why do we ask so many information to the customer for the onboarding? can you show us the text? And then I'm like, well, how can I explain to you that, yes, there is a text and then there is regulatory expectation. And if I want to do transaction monitoring, if I don't have this information, I can't do it properly. So it's all like a balance. And you really learn a lot as a compliance officer to think out of the box, to be, and it's for people who wants to be creative, right? Because you really need to be creative, find a balance with the business. And it teaches you a lot about compliance in general. So like compliance is not a showstopper. Compliance is here to help you, but we all want to make money, right? This is all you need to see things when you work for a crypto company. So compliance is an ally and it's not a show blocker. And you also need to, when the business or tech guys challenge you, it makes it really interesting because they generally have also a good point of view, and it's you can find like a
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
ground.
Where there's a dialogue, it's encouraged. Unfortunately, not all the regulators are open to dialogue, but it's absolutely encouraged.
I mean, you need to try, like at the end of the day, what I was doing, business will push back, I will push back, and then we will find a solution that more or less might not be very happy with it, but the business is happy. And I was saying to them, okay, you know what? I'll go to the regulator. I tell them what we're planning to do. And then I knew that the regulator would say, don't,
No, no, no.
And then I could come back to the business and say, see, they said no. So,
So how did they react to that? Because I'm sure not all crypto teams are so receptive to such a diligent compliance officer.
well, I mean, how do they react to that? Like at the end, we had to comply, right? Like, because what they wanted to do, I think it also depends for the type of crypto company you're working for. And I've always worked for companies that wanted to put compliance first.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to build a credible business that can gain trust in the market. So if the regulators say no, then we are not going to do it, right?
You're
I
very
mean,
fortunate.
yeah. I've not always been fortunate because, at the beginning it's like that, you get the license, but then a lot of things happen, right? And you operate in a global environment and teams want to take risk with which you might disagree, right? And most of the
Yeah,
time when I left the company, is because my risk appetite was not in line with what the company was doing at the end, right?
yeah,
That's something sometimes, like businesses stretch as a boundary too far. And as a compliance officer, you're responsible. And there's things like that cannot fly, at
yeah.
least for me.
No, no, 100%. So where did you go from there? Stayed
So,
in crypto or you went back to TradFi?
no way. I
Never
studied,
back, never going back.
no. I went to work for a miner.
Okay. A miner. That's like
Yeah.
that's an entire other industry.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
that's
and
infrastructure.
yeah, and
That's a different world from exchanges.
exactly. And they were a publicly listed company in Canada with machine in Canada, Russia, and then we had operation in Switzerland.
Hmm.
And there was chief risk and compliance officer. And as you mentioned, it's complete different business model. You have complete different legal challenges. It's more about, looking at what are your counterparties, what kind of deal you have in place, or do you set up a data center? Do you have the authorization from an environment point of view for the city, noise and stuff like that? Where is the machine coming from? Where do you buy your machine, or do you move your machine? And with selling you the machine, if you buy them on the secondary market, and then do you pool your hash? Do you tokenize part of your hash, and then you build up a secondary market platform? So there's a lot of different things like you can do as a miner, but it's very boring vanilla type of compliance job, I have to say. I had to deal with all those legal issues and the data protection part. And data protection is not something I enjoy doing
No,
a lot.
no.
I find it's such a difficult exercise, right? Like, because first, most of the time, companies, they don't know where are their data. They don't know who is doing what with the data. And as a data protection officer, you need to have in place a data processing record, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you need to talk with everybody to
I've been
get
there.
that in line, right?
Yeah.
And also, as a risk officer, then you need to set up the enterprise risk right assessment. And that's also something where you need to deal with everybody that need to fill the risk assessment on a monthly basis, and you need to chase everybody. Oh, it's so just talking about it, I'm like, oh, it drove me nuts. So I did that for a while, but when I was there, this is when I set up the OpenVASP Association with 5 other persons, and we decided to set up a travel rule protocol, which is now called TRP. That was a lot of fun. It was the beginning of the travel rule 2019, and 1920 in Switzerland, it was a legal requirement. And that was a nice hobby on top of my boring job. And after my boring job, I was like, oh, I miss working for dodgy crypto exchange, like I miss the hype, the high risk situation, which is why I left, right? But then I was like, I miss that. And I moved back to crypto exchange. It was BitMEX.
Okay.
That was in 2021, 2022, something like that. And I loved it. Working for BitMEX was very exciting. I was a chief compliance officer for Switzerland. I got them their license, but my main job was to work on the global regulatory strategy, global listing policy, global travel rule training, and it was a lot of fun
Good
because
fun.
yeah, I mean, like the team was in Hong Kong, Singapore. We had a few people in Europe, but there's a lot of things going on, and yeah, it was really interesting because it was a different business than the first company I worked for as a crypto exchange, because BitMEX is known for perps, right? So it was on the crypto derivative trading, which brings other challenges from a compliance point of view than just spot, right?
And at what point did you set up the Telegram chat?
3 years ago, I
3
think.
years ago. Okay.
So
So while you were at BitMEX.
yes, yeah.
And like, where did that spring out from? Like, you were just like meeting people at different conferences, like we should start a group?
No, so that's the story of that is in 2019, while we were applying for OTF license in Switzerland, there was a few other company also applying for licenses, not for OTF, but for like banking. For instance, Seba Bank, which is Amina Bank, was applying for a license. Bitcoin Suisse was also looking at that. Signum Bank also. And at the time, we decided to create a WhatsApp group with the head of compliance of those different entities. They are not there anymore, but we decided to do a little. And the goal was for us to exchange best practices, but also to appear as one front when the regulator is asking you a question and then he's asking the question to another one. We really wanted to make sure that we were aligned about what we will reply. Because if you're not, and A say you can do this, and then B say, I don't know, you can't do this is too much, then that doesn't work. Like you need to appear when the regulation is not clear, you need to find like something where we all agree and that we're going to say to the regulator so that it match also our compliance program or risk appetite, etc. So I started first this little WhatsApp group. And then a friend of mine in the UK, she was like, oh, you know what? I'm really struggling with this crypto compliance thingy. I'm not in charge of that. I'm working for TradeFi. I don't really know how to handle it. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should just create a big group where we can all discuss about that instead of having like a private chat on WhatsApp. And this is why it started Telegram
Yeah.
group
And
years later.
unfortunately, a lot of times these groups end up getting too big and then discourage people from speaking up. But like, you've done a great job at like keeping the conversation exciting for everyone. I don't always partake because it is a bit much, but it is like very much like no, it's a safe place because there's a lot of stellar professionals there, and no scams. So it's really important to have that place where you can go and you could consult with others. And as you know, this is an industry that's constantly evolving, and it's very hard to do things on your own. And one of the things that I like most about this space, lawyers are typically, very possessive over information. But in this space, I guess because everybody's kind of like equally struggling to find their footing, people are very collaborative. And these platforms like yours are great just for having a place to share knowledge.
Yeah, and also, at the time when because I had to set up a compliance program from scratch 3 or 4 times, I was like, I don't understand, why do I need to reinvent the wheel where maybe somebody has a policy that they can share, and then I will just adapt it to my own process instead of paying a lawyer, sorry, like 1,000 of euros to get my, like for just as an example on data protection, right? Like at the time when you had to comply with GDPR in 2018, you had to work with lawyer, and like you need to boot like a full package of policies that cost a fortune for small companies. And I was thinking I also wanted this group to be able to do that, share documents, share the knowledge for free, and just exchange between each other. I thought it's so important because, you know, maybe I have a good idea, but somebody else is better than me in doing it. So why won't we do
Yeah.
just collaborate, right?
I mean, I prefer that people hire lawyers and pay them thousands of euro, but
I
if
know.
they can't afford it, at least they should have somebody who can share the information with them.
Yeah, and this is where, I also started when I started the podcast 2 years ago. It was because I wanted to give back to the community. Like I thought, like, having this big community, I really wanted to give something to those people who are contributing to the group with great content coming directly from the source and compliance and legal side, right?
Hey guys, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. First Read is an AI tool built specifically for lawyers. I've been using it at my firm for over a year now, and I honestly can't imagine my practice without it. I use it as a companion throughout my whole workflow. It runs the first read, literally, of any legal document I'm reviewing. It helps me draft from scratch, and when I'm in a deep, complex piece, I could literally just talk to it. For a commercial lawyer, that's invaluable. But here's what really made me want to work with them. They're a small startup and they care, like really care. If you have an issue, you can get the founder himself in your DMs and he fixes it in minutes. Oh, and the pricing, way more accessible than their competitors. If you want to give it a whirl, head over to firstread.com/sign up and make sure to use BYND, the code 10 at checkout for an additional 10% off. If you do try it, please reach out to me and tell me what you think. I genuinely love to hear your experience. Yeah. So from BitMEX, you go to Solidus. And what is Solidus exactly? Like I've heard of you guys. I know by the byline what it is that you do in the compliance space, but I would appreciate if you could just give us a little bit more of a deep dive into what their product is and what you do as the global head of European compliance.
So the first time I encountered Solidus Labs was in 2018 when I was
Okay.
working for this crypto exchange. And coming from TradeFi, I arrived in this crypto exchange. I'm like, okay, AML, KYC, transaction monitoring, that's a classic. But no, I work for an exchange. They should have market surveillance and market abuse controls. And I was like, oh my God, I've never done that before. How am I going to deal with this thing? And I started to look at providers that could help me doing market surveillance, meaning detecting wash trading, front running, insider trading. But at the time, my main problem was an insider trading because we issued a security token and I had to survey the employees that I will not commit any insider trading, right? And this is how I bumped into Solidus Labs. The company was actually started at the end of 2017. And so when I met them, it was the very beginning of the company providing services to crypto asset provider on market surveillance. And this is how I met Asaf, which is the founder of the company. We had few calls together. I remember I was on the train and I was speaking directly to the founder of the company, right? So what do? We support we started by supporting crypto asset provider to detect and prevent market abuse on crypto. That was the beginning of the company.
Mhm.
Then as a company, we also launched transaction monitoring. So for AML, and when I mean transaction monitoring, I'm not talking about blockchain analytics. I'm really talking about looking at suspicious behavior
Mhm.
using crypto and fiat, right?
Mhm.
And what makes this system very, very powerful is as a compliance officer, I can see all my transaction alert in one tool. So I will log in one platform and I see my alert for trade surveillance. So if someone has committed market abuse or market manipulation, tooting and bashing, pump and dumps, insider trading, I have alerts on that. And then I see all the alerts from an AML point of view. If somebody has, made a withdrawal that is significant, or if its behavior is not in line with what he declared that he's supposed to be. I don't know, you're a student and you deposit like 500K, that's a bit suspicious with crypto or with fiat, right? And then we integrate with blockchain analytics provider. So you will also see your alerts from your blockchain analytics provider in this tool, and that give you a 360 vision on your customer. And on top of that, we use AI, as everybody else, of course. But we use agentic AI. So our agents support our customer to, discount false positive in batch. But also what I find really cool is like when you're not very familiar with market abuse and what it is and how you solve alerts, it can be quite difficult because the way you look at market abuse and the way you look at AML is very different skill sets. For market abuse, I think if you don't understand trading very well, it's really hard to be able to look at alerts and investigate.
Mhm.
So our agent make a summary for you of what is this alert about, what happened, and it really explain to you step by step what happened, which
But
is
the tool is for the compliance officer or the company for like, so the AI is basically summarizing high level reports. The compliance officer is looking at the reports, reading the high level drill down so that they understand at a more basic level, and then they could double click and see what the actual item is. And then
and
if they want to flag it, like you're giving indications, they don't have to act on these things, right?
they do, because I mean, like a tool basically is you access a platform, right? In this platform, you see the alerts, right? It's alerts about like there might be a suspicious behavior, and then when you're a compliance officer, you need to investigate, right? So alerts are generally classified between high, medium, and low risk. So you
Mm-hmm.
start with your high risk alerts, and you need to discount those alerts. Discount alerts means either you say it's a false positive, meaning I don't think anything happened,
Right.
or it's
Or it's
positive.
low risk and not medium, like, and but your platform will already flag it as high, low, or medium, and then
Yes.
the compliance officer will take a look and say
Yeah.
either it's a false positive or it's misidentified.
So basically, the compliance officer going to it, it opens the alerts, and then you need to investigate this alert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the agent support you in your investigation because it will give you a summary of what happened. And then the compliance officer obviously needs to investigate, So what you may need to do is to ask questions to your customer, but generally the first thing you will do, at least on my side, when I understand what happened, I go
Mm-hmm.
to my customer profile. I want to see who is my customer, where is he based, what is his transaction history, did he add on any other alert on his profile? Maybe he has an AML alert, maybe something happened on the crypto side, maybe his wallet has been exposed to any illicit activity. And with a tool, you can see you have a full vision of your customer, which really helps you in your investigation. Does that make
Amazing.
sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. No, I'm just scrolling through your website while you chat, and matching your description with the graphics here.
It's like, does she know what she's talking
No,
about or
no,
not?
that was very helpful.
And then to come back to my role, so I'm no head of policy Europe, but in reality, I'm doing everything
Everything.
regulatory
I was gonna say,
affairs.
based on the way you talk and the amount of stuff that you do, I can't imagine that there would be room for anybody else there.
So everything regulatory affairs policy related is me, except the US. The US, I leave that to my boss. I
Okay.
wish I could do the US too, but I'm too busy. I'm already too busy.
Wow.
And what that means, when you're head of policy, you need to, basically your job is to network with regulator and the private sector, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I say network with regulator, is influence, lobby, and be seen as a thought leader on different policy topic, and really support them, educate the regulator. We write the consultation paper. But what is important, you work for a private company, right? So when you interact with the regulator, your goal is to have regulations that are favorable to your product. So my goal, I want regulator to adopt regulation where they require their future licenses to have market abuse control in place, and preferably use a trade surveillance system that is external and not internal. So that's something I need to lobby
Like
for.
Solidus.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, say this is the way it works, right? So you do that. So that's your goal number one. And your goal number two is also to provide them feedback, give them guidance, and also talk about any other regulatory topic and support them by giving them the regulator in XYZ countries. This is what they do, give them a global overview, but not only about market abuse, right? Like, I don't know, like recently I've been asked to make presentation on regulatory framework on prediction market globally. And they can ask you, or I don't know, I've been replying to consultation paper on tokenization and supporting the regulator on those topics, right? So the goal one, your product, and then goal two, obviously, is to talk about everything with the regulator and build up a relationship of trust. And then the other part of the job is working on the private sector, right? So on the private sector, the goal is to support your sales team, right? So your sales team will have different meetings with prospects. So you are in the call so that when the prospect is asking question on the regulatory framework or what is seen on the market from a regulatory point of view, you can support your team. Or, things like, hey, Delphine, the client in jurisdiction XYZ is asking about regulation on AML transaction monitoring. They want to know which typologies are required. Can you just map everything that? And by the way, it's for tomorrow, 8 a.m. We don't care. You're in Singapore organizing an event. Who cares? Just please go ahead and do that. And also the goal is, at least my goal is really to try to bring the community together from a private sector and a public sector point of view. And this is why I also like to organize a crypto compliance and legal roundtable, crypto compliance and legal drinks, to really support the community on the, to network together and exchange, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, give me some of your thoughts on where things are going from a regulatory perspective. Like, you're all in on global regulation and policy, so I would love to get your high level assessment as to where this industry is going. I could tell you that from a week in Miami, it looks like crypto is becoming TradFi. Half of the people there were wearing suits from some investment bank or another, and it was very different from anything that I've seen before as far as crypto is concerned. There's something nice about it because it seems like the industry is maturing. On the other hand, there's something less nice about it because it seems that the industry is maturing. Like, it's been more fun with the Degens, but I guess we all have to grow up at some point. So I'd love to get your thoughts. Kind of, I guess you speak to a lot of compliance officers, and you see this industry from a very interesting perspective. Where do you think we're going?
So I think first you're totally right. Like no, compared to 8 years ago, is completely different. And in terms of regulation, like it's not going to be less regulation, like whatever people think. So like people are always criticizing Mika. So yesterday I was in an event in Zug, and it was there. The event was about Mika and Austria positioning themselves as a crypto hub. And there was this guy on stage saying like, "Oh, but Mika is such a strict framework. Is a stricter framework in the world." And I'm like, "No, man. I mean, like, stop being so European centric. There are other countries which also have like very strict framework where I agree with you. Like, we're treating crypto businesses as financial institution. We can talk about like, is it right or wrong later on. But if you look at Hong Kong, for instance, there are very stringent requirements when it comes to licensing, same as Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, South Korea. Japan is getting there. Japan is putting like crypto under securities. Australia has also like passed a new bill. So everyone is going to direction about like crypto is not going to be only under AML. Crypto is an asset class. If you provide financial services, you need to be regulated as a financial institution. And the EU is not a different beast from any other jurisdiction. And the good thing about the EU is that it provides you access to more than 500 million people in an harmonized framework. Whereas in Asia, where I'm going to go, I'm moving to Hong Kong in September, and I will take over APAC policy officially. I'll keep Europe, but if you look at APAC policy, then you have different framework per country, right? Which from a policy point of view on my side makes it much more interesting because now
Hmm.
I have to lobby tons of
No,
different
but that's where the
regulators.
industry is going. Also, like APAC is the future.
Yeah, and like the in APAC, like the regulatory framework is still at the beginning, except Hong Kong, which is like far away from everybody
Hmm.
else. And every other APAC jurisdiction, if you look, I don't know, at Taiwan, for instance, they're also building up their framework right now. So there's a lot of lobbying, influencing to be done. But the direction of travel is more regulation and
Yeah.
putting and says and even like if you look, I don't know if you've been read if you have read the latest UK consultation on PR something. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. But it was about like what are the activities that are going to be into scope about the new licensing regime. And
Hmm.
like DeFi may fall under that. Like the scope is so broad. It's much broader than the ones that we have in the EU. So the direction of travel is more regulation. What I'm hoping for is when it comes to DeFi, because now a lot of regulators are looking into DeFi. So there is two topics they're looking at. One know is tokenization is number one buzzword, and the other one on the regulatory framework is DeFi. And what I hope for on that side is like the regulator will not be full on that, maybe like adopting a gradual regulatory approach. I think like at least financial crime regulation should apply. Like no one wants to launder money coming from human trafficking and things like that, I hope.
Hmm.
So I think there should be like a baseline that should apply somehow depending on the business model, obviously. But the problem is, as you mentioned, DeFi space is still very degen and they don't look like growing up. And if you don't act like a growing up and if you don't act as a unified front and someone sees you, the regulator will go full on you
Yeah.
because you just look stupid. They just think you're a little kid and you have no idea what you're doing. Well, you might know what you are doing, but you need to look serious when you talk to the regulators. Otherwise, they will just impose regulation on you, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. Like there definitely needs to be some growing up, but more importantly, the second thing that you said, a unified front. That's what really we really need, because there's been too much of like infighting, and
Yeah.
if we just could be aligned, then I think that we can get in front of regulators and we could get some kind of clarity as to what the future is going to look like. So
I agree. I
I
agree.
I hope that we see it in our days.
Oh, come on, be optimistic. Of course you will say it. Which
I'm not optimistic. I'm not sure that that's really what I want. So I'm kind of hedging on both sides. Like I love working with the Degens. Like it's more fun.
I agree, but like from a compliance point of view, on my side, sometimes I'm on calls and I'm like, wow.
So I look at it as like it's my duty to educate. So like
Yeah.
I don't get freaked out when I speak to these kids who don't know what they're talking about. I look at it as an opportunity to explain to them like how to be an adult.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But it's also a lot of fun because I think when you work with what we call the degen, they are very, very creative, right? So it's also good from my point at the very beginning of the podcast about like, because they push you so hard and you really need to rethink the way you think. And from an intellectual point of view, I find it really cool. I love that.
Right. But the difference between you and I is like I'm legal, you're compliance. So from a legal standpoint, they'll come to me and they'll say, I want to do something. Okay. And then I'll figure out how they could do it. But I'm looking at multiple different tracks. As a compliance professional, I imagine that you're almost always looking at a regulated track, right? So you don't have the opportunity to
Mm.
offer like a regulatory arbitrage
No, 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 no.
style route.
No. Like, my role was to, when you work on global regulatory strategy, this is what you do, right? Like the business come with the products, they want to do X, Y, Z. Your role is to tell them, well, depending on your budget, what is the
And your
budget?
risk
Like, right?
appetite.
Yeah. This is, if you tell me X, then this, I think we can do this. If you want to do that, well, it's gonna
Okay.
cost you this money. And then if you need to
So it's
review
not
your
so
product,
different.
right? No,
Yeah.
and you need to review your product, your business model. You can do X, Y, Z. Like this is the high level, right?
Yeah.
On the regulatory side. And
Yeah.
this is what is fun. I love doing that.
Yeah.
Like
And that's
building a compliance program from scratch is fun, but then like when it's done, I don't really care. I like to work on the interesting stuff, right? Which is
exactly.
the strategy, right?
Exactly. The strategy. That's where the fun is. That's where we like to operate as well. Okay,
Yes.
good. So hopefully we'll find opportunities where we can build together.
Yes, please. I'm sure we can
Delphine,
find some
thank
interesting
you
stuff.
so much for joining me today and for sharing so much of your time. For those of you who are listening, if you're in the compliance or the legal sectors and you're not yet members of Delphine's group, I will share a link. It's called Crypto Compliance and Legal, very original name. And there's this cool little upside down triangle logo. Where does that come from, by the way?
It's crypto with a C, compliance, and legal with a L, right?
Ah, very good. Okay. Did you design that?
No, so my good friend Lucas, who is the CEO of 21 Analytics,
Okay.
as a designer, and they did it for me.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Delphine, thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
one.
you. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Code. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and to tune in again next week for more fun and insightful conversation.